and welcome back once again, adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS Head. In the last episode, Takumi had some very interesting delusions, I would say. The positive delusion was Serotan herself existing in the three-dimensional world as a two-dimensional character, and then rather morbidly turning Takumi into a 2D character himself, but not by transforming him into an anime character. And of course the second delusion was from the perspective supposedly of the new gen killer, at least from Takumi's perspective, but we didn't actually see the identity of who that particular person was. But we're here to see whether or not Takumi Nishijo is actually a sleepwalker or not, and having grandiose or grotesque delusions is certainly not going to help that. So it's time to face the music and reality, and that was not Sarah's voice. That was Hazuki, the nurse. And apparently we've been sleeping for 3 hours this whole time. By we, I of course mean Takumi. Serotan, one hand placed lightly on my chest, was shaking me to wake me up. I dreamed this day would come. My life of wedded bliss with Serotan. Every morning she would come to wake me up wearing only an apron, and then she'd give me a good morning kiss.
Nishijo-san!
And it's time to break the dream. And wake up back to the three-dimensional world. That is reality. If Takumi would ever actually open his eyes. I slowly opened my eyes. There we go. Someone was looking down at me. Our eyes met. She was Hazuki-san, the nurse, and not Sarah. Flustered, I looked around. I was still on top of the hospital bed. Looks like he managed to drift from REM sleep to non-REM sleep quite well. What? So I've been dreaming that Sarah had been talking to me. Disappointing, but that's the truth. Even though it's probably the afternoon, since we have been sleeping for 3 hours.
結局3時間ぐっすりでしたね。
Well, that's actually a very good diagnosis to hear. 3 hours already, despite the fact that I felt like it had hardly been 5 minutes. I glanced over at Hazuki-san as I blearily rubbed my eyes, and for some reason she was covering her mouth as if she couldn't keep herself from smiling.
セイラさんって彼女さん?
Ah, so Takumi was talking in his sleep. Well, talking is not the same as walking, so...
ずっと寝言でつぶやいていましたから。
which is fairly embarrassing to say the least. My face became pale. I'd made an enormous mistake, letting a regular person hear me talk in my sleep. And of all things, I'd let Serotan's name slip out. I wanted to crawl into a hole and die.
でも、無遊病の症状は結局出ませんでしたよ。
Well, that is good news, the only bit of good news that we've heard since we got here. Hazuki-san told me as she opened the curtain.
まあ、今日はたまたま症状が出なかっただけかもしれないから、無遊病でないっていう断定はできないですけど。
Well, that is a fair assessment. No, I'm not a sleepwalker. More importantly, I had to ask Dr. Takashina my key question. But I didn't see him anywhere. Hazuki-san handed me a one-sheet document. When I accepted it absent-mindedly and skimmed it, it turned out to be formatted as a questionnaire.
それはあなたの心理状態を把握するためのチェックシートです。心理テストのようなものね。それを書いてくれたら今日はもう帰っていいって先生が。
先生は。
ごめんなさい。ずっと診察が続いてて。
Alas. Takumi, it looks like you've lost your chance.
来週まで様子を見て、まだ改善が見られないようならもう一度来てくださいって。
Well, there is the possible opportunity to meet with them again. So there is that. Well, it's not like he's my personal doctor. He must have given Hazuki-san various instructions about what to do with me. This meant that there had been no meaning in my coming all the way out to the hospital. None whatsoever. I wanted to ask him about my petrifying symptoms, about how I was being manipulated by someone outside myself. Probably should have started with that first. That said, with Hazuki-san looking at me so apologetically, I didn't have the bravery to demand, "Take me to Dr. Hakashina." Helpless, I ended up filling out the checklist she'd handed to me. I'd write about the symptoms that were plaguing me on the back of the page, and I'd come to see him again next week. Fair enough.
チェックシートは質問に対してイエスかノーかだけを答える簡単なものですから。
So it's a yes or no questionnaire.
当てはまる点があったらイエスにチェックしてくださいね。今後の西條さんの治療に対する参考にしますから、じっくり考えて答えてください。
Hazuki went out of her way to explain it to me thoroughly. Among the items on the sheet were ones so strange that they didn't seem to belong there in the context of a standard hospital. It really was like a psychological test. Would they be able to understand anything based on my answers to questions like this? Hazuki-san watched me unwaveringly. She didn't move to leave. It didn't feel like she had too much time to spare. More like she was observing me. No, watching over me. My nervousness of being watched made it hard to me to think. Was this also part of her job as a nurse? For the time being, I decided to hurry up and get it over with. Let's see. Now this, yeah, you can definitely see what Takumi is saying. Some of these questions actually do not appear to relate to any sort of hospital diagnosis that we've ever seen before. And even though it's labeled medical record diagnosis, and there is also something down in the lower right corner of this questionnaire, Nozomi, which is a very interesting brand to see on a medical record. You prefer email to using the phone. That doesn't really have anything to do with a medical record per se. It sounds like a quiz question, but in the context of this diagnosis sheet, it's kind of out of place. And then you have some of these ones, like your ears occasionally start ringing. You've sensed someone's gaze and then turned around. Some of these actually do appear to relate to Takumi himself. So, probably a good idea to... I wonder. In any event, I'll probably should go yes to that. I am going to say yes to the ears ringing and the gaze and turn around. You've seen inanimate objects briefly appear to be moving. That's kind of an occult sort of supernatural thing. You've experienced premonitions. The photo with Shogun aside, not really, but we're actually not going to tick that one at all. At times when you look at a digital clock, all the numbers are the same. Well, we haven't experienced this of the slight thing, so I'm going to lie and say yes. I don't know if this is actually going to affect anything in the slightest, but we're going to try and cheat them at their own game, so to speak. You've cried at least once in the past month? No, never. Never at all. You can reach orgasm slowly through the strength of your imagination. Nothing interrupts your fantasies while you are masturbating. I know Takumi is a very heavily as an otaku, but these questions are going a bit too far. You can picture things without closing your eyes. I think a lot of people can do that. You sometimes see people's faces in the windshield of your car. No? You have a hard time going to the bathroom after watching a horror movie. Well, considering what happens in some horror movies, that can happen, but not in this case. Can't handle being in haunted houses. Takumi probably can't, but When you read books, you become so immersed that you forget what time it is. That can pretty much happen to anyone as well. You believe there are planets aside from Earth that play host to humanoid creatures. That's UFO conspiracy theory right there. And you know what? We're going for it. The personality stereotypes based on your blood type fit you perfectly. I don't even know how that works. You easily get motion sickness in vehicles. Now that does happen to some people. You believe in the existence of God. Going to leave that one alone. You were good at sensing ghosts. You know what? Fine, I'll buy it. When sleeping, you sometimes dream in full color. While sleeping, there have been times in which you knew you were in a dream, very much Inception-like. You've experienced the loss of parts of your memory. Huh. If we actually did lose parts of our memory, we probably wouldn't experience it or remember experiencing it. Hence the whole loss of memory thing. You dislike looking people in the eye. Go with that one. Looking at a dry plum is enough to make your mouth full of saliva. No, not in the slightest. You have the feeling that yawns are contagious. That seems to be a thing, apparently. So those are the questions we're going to go with. And again, I have absolutely no idea in the slightest whether these will have anything to do with anything. Some of them might, some of them won't. Who knows?
はい、お疲れ様でした。
And anyway, that rather strange questionnaire is done. Though I hadn't said anything, Hazuki spoke to me exactly the same time as I finished marking the last statement. I was mortified she'd watched me the whole time. Maybe my face had started turning red, which is why I meekly returned the checklist without looking in Hazuki's direction. I didn't have enough time to write down my symptoms on the back of the page,
それでは待合室でお待ちください。
so we still have to spend some time here in the
お薬
hospital.
が出てますから。
薬
I was getting medicine. Dr. Takashina hadn't said a word to that effect, but
ええ、先生の指示で。弱い精神安定剤です。ぐっすり眠れるようになるし、副作用などもありませんよ。
something in my intuition tells me that it's probably going to be hard to take that at face value. I see. How like him, how considerate. But I became depressed at the prospect of having to wait in the lobby again. Unfortunately, it can't be avoided. At least it's over. It was evening by the time I returned to Shibuya. The hospital was technically part of Shibuya, but station-wise, Yoyogi was closer, so taking the train was the fastest way to get there. But the Yamanote line was as packed as always, and though I had to ride only 2 stations, this round trip alone wore me out a lot. It'd be agonizing to take the train any farther, so I got off at Shibuya Station and walked back to my base, on foot. For all that, there were too many people in front of the station. I hate huge crowds. They make my head spin. Not wanting to stay any longer than I had to, I tried to cross the pedestrian scramble. This is probably going to be a very poor choice. But it took a big effort just to walk in a straight line here, considering how busy the Shibuya scramble can often be. If I swayed even a tiny bit, I'd bump into the people passing me and overtaking me. Plus, people handing out free tissues kept getting in the way, forcing pocket-sized tissues at me. Sick and tired of it, I ignored the first guy, but the second one turned out to be a rather cute lady, so I took hers. Those tissue distributors are a serious hassle. Don't stand smack in the middle of the street like that. Well, but I go ahead and take them since they're free. The tissue pack I'd taken had come with a flyer which consisted solely of white letters on a background of red paper. It was pretty freaky looking. You don't see this kind of color usage all that often. I read it nonchalantly as I walked. It was a blood donation flyer. Reading it, I recalled the checklist I'd filled out at the hospital earlier. Supplies of type B blood are currently inadequate. The demand for transfusions far exceeds Shibuya's supply of type B blood. At this rate, it would become incredibly difficult to provide adequate amounts of blood to those who need it. In the worst case scenario, some may die, and they won't survive without your cooperation as a donor. By all means, be sure to stop by the blood donation south of the Inokashira line. I think... Didn't we only have one? I don't think we checked that one. Huh. I can remember filling something something like that 4 years ago. Maybe the diagnostic methods changed recently. Yet for some reason the checklist seemed familiar. How so? That's a bit strange. Deja vu. All I'd felt lately was deja vu. It made me sick. The fact that my own mind and body wouldn't be able to act the way that I wanted them to. I dug through my memory in hopes of somehow being able to pin down the source of this deja vu. Alas, to no avail. Well, that was definitely an interesting turn of events. But I'm actually going to call it an episode here, adventurers, and when we return, we shall see just what it is that Takumi Nishijo has managed to recall from the depths of his own mind. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.